Uruguay actually just recently became one of the newest countries to legalize the sale, distribution, and production of marijuana. So basically, the entire country of Uruguay can now go and get high. And that is absolutely awesome. The co-sponsor of the bill actually says that there is actually a good reason that they went and decided to legalize. They said, today there is a market dominated by drug traffickers. We want the state to dominate it, which is a really, really good reason, because down in South America, and especially around places like Mexico, there's a really, really big, huge problem of drug trafficking, the drug cartels, the drug gangs, and so this is really a good attempt to sort of mitigate that. Basically, individuals in Uruguay can actually grow their own, join a cooperative, or obtain it through a licensed pharmacy. So they are literally legalize, regulate, and tax, which is absolutely fantastic. And of course, you've got the normal stipulations where you can't sell it to minors, you can't drive with it, obviously, under the influence, or advertise in the black market. I want to get the panel's reaction to this, because this is some major, really important news.
Well, what I thought was interesting about when this was announced, like right following it being passed, was that the Mujica came out and said, we're going to be trying this experiment, and it's important to us that other countries, even if you're not going to replicate this, within your own borders, at the very least, help us to try this out, to see if this is a good alternative to the war on drugs that we've waged for multiple decades. And our response from the State Department was, yeah, we're going to need you to comply with international law when it comes to legalizing marijuana. Which, I guess we kind of have to do that, and it's really not out of character for the Obama administration, considering what they've done in terms of, raiding dispensaries in California. I guess we can't expect them to have, applauded, but it is disheartening that they're not even willing to provide some moral support for someone who's trying something so possibly groundbreaking.
And that's kind of really hilarious, the whole part about international law. How many times have we broke international law?
Those drones are all legal, Jeff. Every drone strike is legal.
Of course they are. So says the secret court.
Yeah.
Kind of
interesting.
And
plus you get your first 2 nuclear weapons. Those are free. There's no consequences for those.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Unless you're North Korea or Iran.
It's interesting for a couple of reasons. Obviously, for the progressive reason that everyone's really curious to see how it's going to work and all of that. But the second part of it that I find really interesting is that they really did kind of just leap everything. We were kind of still waiting for pot legalization, and even in Canada right now that's becoming an election issue for 2015 with one of the main our liberal candidate supporting it. But we would never go that far, and we're pretty socialist up here. Our liquor and all our booze is actually within the government control as well. So it's an interesting thing to see that happen. The second part of this, though, that I find really interesting from somebody who is an American is not to go full Fox News conspiracy theory, but it is interesting with George Soros and his foundation being involved in that, taking out TV campaigns. They met with Soros and David Rockefeller in New York. They were the ones that kind of wanted the experiment to be done. So that got reported a lot up here, and it's an interesting thing because a lot of people in Uruguay weren't for it and didn't like that, America coming in. So the opposition party was saying we're not your guinea pig. And so to not go full Fox News and think that George Soros is trying to take over the world or anything, but it is an interesting case of how would you feel if you were in Uruguay and there was so much outside. Why don't we try this, guys?
I think that's my favorite part about it, is that the people aren't in favor of it, and that the government is just doing it because it's the right thing to do anyway. And I really want to see them.
That's the opposite of what we do here, by the way.
But I really want to see them get turned around on the issue, because crime will go down. We say, we want to see what will happen with the experiment, except we've already seen it in Portugal, where they decriminalized, not legalized it. And in our own country with prohibition of alcohol, we've already seen what happens. The crime basically goes away, and people get high for a while, for 3 years, and then after a while, usage even starts to go down. Especially young people usage goes down. So it's awesome, and it's awesome that they said, nah, we don't really care what the polls say.
And another thing to go along with that is that, remember when Portugal decriminalized their drugs, they spent a lot less on enforcement, and they took a lot of that money, which they did spend on enforcement, and they turned it into treatment centers, which actually helped a lot.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of positive effects.
It's going to be a hard sell, I think, to move the money over. Like, I mean, theoretically, if you could get some of the government contractors who are involved in the war on drugs and just tell them, well, if you just start providing treatment services, then maybe they'd see a financial incentive to go along with that. But they're probably not going to. What I like about, because obviously anytime something this significant happens internationally, I wonder about the repercussions in America. What I like about them legalizing it, and what I liked about it happening in Colorado and Washington, is for some reason people in America can't seem to wrap their heads around what legalization would actually look like. Like, they act like, well, if it's legal, then people could just drive high. They could just go to work high. As if there's no other substances humans consume that can modify behavior that we don't already regulate socially and legally. So just when we have these prohibitions, and they make clear you can't sell to minors, okay, you can only possess a certain amount, you can't go driving with it. Like, it seems obvious, but hopefully this will provide, I don't know, some sort of mental framework for people to wrap their head around what it would actually look like if it was to be done federally.
You know, and it's kind of funny. They actually look to us as sort of a framework, Colorado and Washington specifically, and they said, well, if we can do it there, we can do it here. And because look at the stuff that's happened. I mean, Colorado hasn't caught on fire yet. They got
a lot of the country was on fire last year, though.
That's true. And
that was also George Soros, by the way.
False flag operation.
Yeah.
But later on, of course, then they got the floods. So to be fair, it did catch on fire, but then it, you know, then the water put it out. So.
God was like, end of this flood.
He's like, hold on. Maybe I was a little too swift on the judgment.
No, but the one mistake that I think that the Uruguayan government made is that they're going to sell it at under the cost of production through the government. They should let private people grow and sell marijuana. That way you'll have Uruguayan marijuana corporations lobbying against the private contractors. Like, you need that big money to, like...
That'll come, though. I don't think you want necessarily, maybe that's your starting point, necessarily switching kingpins over, like, right away. I think that could be sort of an optics problem.
Yeah, well, I can see why they would do it this way in the first place, in order to undercut and get rid of the drug game kingpins. Well, you knock those guys out of the picture, then you can sort of turn it over a little bit to the private market, and then they can do what you say.
One reason I think that Sean could be right about why it would be advantageous to allow private companies to just dive headfirst in there is if you have some worry that, okay, we're going to run this experiment, and what if, you know, another party or politician gets into power in a few years and they want to reverse it? If you create a vested interest in these industries that are suddenly making a ton of money, then they're going to do the lobbying for you and possibly stop some sort of future reversal in that policy.
And that is one of the few ways that money in the political system might actually be somewhat advantageous. And
well, actually, we saw sort of a weird version of that in America when it came to Obamacare. That because, you know, we had, you know, the mandate that you had to use the private insurance. At various points, private insurers were actually doing Obama's work for them and trying to tamper down some of the opposition on the right. I mean, I don't know how far that actually went, but it seemed like there was at least some evidence of that.
I mean, the drug companies love Obamacare too, so same thing, same law and different interests. But
but John, Obamacare is worse than any war.
I think that Uruguay legalizing marijuana was just meant to distract us from Obamacare.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things I think that's interesting to look at here, the same way we're kind of, I hope this works with Obamacare in the States, the Uruguayan, the way they're implementing this is sort of interesting. So their drug control agency has 120 days, right? It's about mid-April to draft regulations imposing state control over the entire market. So that's your first hurdle. As we all know from all of our governments, 120 days, do something, go.
It might actually work there. I mean, because remember, they don't have a government that's as dysfunctional as ours. So
nobody has the government that's dysfunctional.
Might actually work a little bit better, at least on this issue.
Well, and we have to bear in mind that that's a lot to get done in 120 days, but most of them won't be smoking marijuana yet. Afterward, it'll be difficult to get the second draft done, I think.
So my question for you guys is, when are we going to invade Uruguay. I hear they need some freedom down there. A little bit of democracy.
No, they're doing something good, so it'll be the other way around. When will you actually ban them or put an embargo on Uruguay, or that's what'll happen first.
You guys need to look up what happens to Latin American leaders. It's going to be a car bomb.
Okay.
Not saying anything, just saying.
Yeah, that's true.
But
well, he hasn't nationalized any non-drug industries yet. If he starts getting into like the energy sector or something,
or bananas,
possibly water in the future, then we'll see.
But I hope it works out for Uruguay. But to me, like, some of the regulations are totally unnecessary. It's like Washington State. In their legalization plan, they have the governor has to figure out a way to bring the marijuana to market. I'm like, dude, it's already coming to market when it's illegal. Like, that stuff figures itself out. Like, I actually like Colorado's method like way better.
I think you do have to look, though, and this is why I think it's going to be tricky times in that 120 days. You have to look at the PR of it, like everything else in politics now, unfortunately, which is you've got to sell it. So they don't really have a lot of room for error if you look at the public opinion polls there. When you do something bold as the leader, when the public isn't 100% behind you, you don't have too much room for error. And I think the wiggle room there is going to be interesting to see in that first 120 days. On how it goes and how smoothly it goes for people outside of the country who are progressives in their own right, hoping it works.
I'm kind of wondering why public opinion in that country is so low when it comes to marijuana anyway. I'm kind of curious. Do you think it's a possibility that they were influenced by American propaganda?
That or the violence. I would imagine that if you're in a country where you're seeing we're involved in the violence when it comes to the war on drugs, but it's outside of our borders, so I don't know, it doesn't affect us psychologically as directly, I think. For them, it's not theoretical, like they see it day to day.
And as I said, they are is a game of leapfrog here. It's going from 0 to 60. It really is. And I think not that that's a bad thing, but obviously, as we know in North America, even in our politics, it's hard to convince people to move just this much in a direction and to tell them that we're going full tilt to 100% complete government control. I think is always going to be a harder sell if you implement something in stages, which is why, Sean, I think that they couldn't do and private companies are going to be able to profit massively off this right away. I think it's just that that's their baby step, if you will.
Right, and it's really simple. Like, you see, they see the violence every day, right? Because their country's been it's not good with the drug violence over there, and they associate the violence with the marijuana instead of associating it with the prohibition of marijuana. So it's like a cop who works the drug beat and just doesn't see what's right in front of his face. That it's not the drugs, it's the laws. So it's just that. And
it hasn't played well, though, the American billionaires, quote unquote, you know what I mean? That hasn't played great. That's where some of the ideology is coming from, and there was meetings with it does seem like an outside hand's doing it. And of course, whether the actual average person, whether or not that's just party politics trying to trump that up, we'll have to see when public opinion goes, as it goes towards April. But right now, I mean, that is the main talking point from their opposition, which is, we're their guinea pigs.
Another question is, do you think, if this experiment is successful, do you think that will change any minds? If that will make the pro-legalization movement in America even stronger?
Well, I would say, the people who have some fundamental opposition to it, who are generally older in America, I don't think that you are going to sway them, but I also don't think that you necessarily have to. I think that the massive movement we've seen in surveys over the last 5 years, I think that's mainly people who don't care much, who are kind of scared of what it might mean, and then they see, it's being legalized places, nobody seems to be dying from it. I think that those people could be swayed, perhaps not by Uruguay, but by maybe if this causes 1 or 2 more states in America, like I know it was just proposed in the House in New York State. Maybe that could sway the independents on this issue.
And from a North American viewpoint, I mean, just to clarify, in 2015, this Canadian election, are right-wing parties and a whole ton of problems with different scandals right now. Nothing, Rob Ford serious, but it
Sounds
is.
familiar.
But there is some serious problems, and the guy who is leading is the former Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau's son, Justin Trudeau. He is for legalization. So I think the real point, if you want to see things in North America change, it'll be how well those legalization has going. How's it doing in Colorado? How's it doing in the states? You actually legalizing it, and then that's what we'll look to as well. And then of course, if Canada turns, I think it's going. I think we just have to wait. Like it's going in the right direction if you're for that movement. I mean, I think that I would say the next 5-10 years you'll see it all turn the other way. Much like we saw gay marriage in the last decade start to it's just something that this generation does not care about. The hang-ups just aren't there. So as more of us get into office, and the Xers don't care either. It's an old argument.
Yeah. I think Canada flipping could make a pretty big difference. Like if we're going to be influenced by any country's change in policy, hopefully it'll be that.
I hope Canada. I hope Canada goes for it, and I hope they do it first, so we could get those campaigns where they say, "You think marijuana is good? Ask a Canadian." Those are my favorite clips of all time. No, but I think what will honestly turn it around is a lot of people will go to Uruguay for tourism, and like once those tourism dollars start flowing in over there, like some of them other little countries might start doing that. So it might be a Latin America up type thing.
Yeah, maybe other neighboring countries in Latin America will feel some sort of financial pressure to do that, to compete. I don't know.
Well, did you ever really take your, political advice though from American countries? Like, is that? I'm curious about whether or not this is like. Let's be real for a second. I don't know how much America's going to turn and go. Yeah, Latin America's doing pretty good with that. Drugs, eh? I think. Yeah. I think you'll more likely find something stupid will happen, like anything does when you legalize something, and you have a huge change in government policy, and they will focus on that bad thing, whether some kid right. There'll be something, and I think that's more what we're going to have to fight against, which is why I'd say what the real litmus test will be is the states that did it last election, how it works, how's it going, and same with if Canada ever turned, then you'd be in real pressure.
Some 16-year-old's gonna smoke weed and fall asleep and set his house on fire, and that will be all over the news for like 6 years.
I wouldn't be surprised to see it, but realistically, I really see this whole thing as 10 years. 10 years at the most, and most of America is gonna flip. There's still gonna be some holdouts, I predict, such as you've got your staunchly red conservative states in the South mainly. But you're going to see, some of the more liberal states, New York, California, start to flip. And then once those go, you're going to start getting into the more moderate states. I mean, we already have medical marijuana here in Michigan. And so it wouldn't take long for us to be able to flip too. Those pro-pot groups are actually really, really good at grassroots politicking and really they're really getting out their efforts and they're really pushing towards it. So I know it's amazing to think like, oh my God, these lazy stoners are actually getting out there and doing the work. But
I think the one thing you have to keep in mind too is for the difference in politics, of course, of Uruguay is things got kind of so bad. They're like, why not? I think in America and North America, it's going to be a financial issue. It's going to be the middle class is getting squeezed from every which way. How do we get $5 more from a stone? And if marijuana can prove that it does that, I think you're going to see everybody's I hate marijuana turn into marijuana not so bad. And I think like everything else in North America, it has to do with the economics of things.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Please leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and share with your friends. If you want to see more, go to our channel at youtube.com/TYTNation. And if you really want to support the show, support this channel, go to our fundraising campaign at www.patreon.com/TYTNation. The website is in the description below. Thank you guys, and keep watching.